With devious dungeons, foreboding forests, and the coolest cats, welcome back to the Dark Orb. My name is Phil, and thank you so much for joining me today for another episode of the Dark Orb Meets, where I try to get involved with RPG designers and rule set creators and authors and discuss their really cool projects that are either upcoming or currently running at the moment. Today, I am discussing Wild RPG, or Wake Initiated Lucid Dreaming. It's really an exciting game, and I'm really interested to see and hear all about it from the really cool creators who gracefully have joined me today. David F. Chapman
Yeah.
and Stoo Goff.
Hi.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's cool.
This is such a cool game. I'm really interested in it. So my understanding is that this game is effectively where the players are like explorers in a dreamscape, and you're delving into the minds of the unconscious, really. And I don't think I've seen this in a game at all.
No, I think the closest I've seen to it would be something like H.P. Lovecraft's Dreamlands and stuff like that for Cthulhu. But that's possibly about it. I know there's a couple of ones that came up last time I did a chat about this that I'd not heard of, and went, "Oh, blimey! Somebody's stolen the ideas."
They were both video games, though.
Oh,
Yeah, video games don't count. Don't be silly.
Yeah. So yeah, as an RPG, I've not seen anything like it before either.
So I mean, could you please just tell me a little bit about the game? I mean, it's kind of contemporary and it's not contemporary, and it's science fiction and it's fantasy. I mean, where do we start?
It's kind of set now, but the only difference is that the technology to allow people to go into other people's dreams exists. It's a little bit like Inception, or there's a TV series recently on called Reverie that was very
show.
similar.
I loved that show very much.
Another one of those great ones that got cancelled after one season. And there's another one which is very worth digging out, especially the first season on Amazon Prime, called Falling Water as well.
I haven't seen that.
Which is the first season especially is really good. Second one not so great. And that's very much the same sort of thing, except there's no technology behind it. That's all kind of psychic. But basically, you go into somebody else's dreams, explore their unconscious, and find out what's troubling them. That's the basic concept. But
that's the intention. I can imagine that there might be some adaptation to that depending on your player group and your GM, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Is there Go on.
I was just going to say that the technology is used for multiple things as well. So if you wanted to do something like Westworld, for example, you just have lots of people who are hooked up to the same device, and they basically have a holiday where they not only are they dressed and experiencing something that they wouldn't normally, they could actually be somebody completely different.
Reminds me also of, I've completely forgotten the name of the film now. There is a film where you have the recordings of people's real life experiences.
Strange Days.
That's the one. Thank you very much. I was thinking, is it that? Is it Virtuosity? No, it's not Virtuosity.
Strange Days was great. I loved that one.
Yeah, it's such a good film that I couldn't even remember the name of it, even though I've seen it multiple times. So there you go. Very quickly, hello to Sanjuro and to Andy. Thank you for joining us. Right, so we've talked about the inspirations for it. I can also see it perhaps even going down a different route depending on how you wanted to take it, purely because dreams can be so different themselves, can't they? So you could quite easily have a nightmare or some sort of really existential fantasy thing, kind of a what dreams may come weird, kind of grandiose adventure. And I guess that could quite easily go from a one shot to even a short campaign.
Definitely. I mean, it's something that I'm hoping to expand upon later is the range of the sort of dreams that you can go into, depending on the what I call the primary dreamer. So there's the one person whose subconscious you're going into, basically, and it kind of depends on how imaginative they are. I mean, if you go into the unconscious mind of some boring business type who just works in a cubicle every day, their dream might be very repetitive day job type thing. But if you go into somebody who's very into reading fantasy or something like that, or watching a lot of movies, their dreamscapes might be a little bit wilder, to, if you pardon the pun.
And that kind of ties in with also how much you can stretch the dream as well. So if it's a very sort of bland person, a bland dream, then you risk breaking it the more you push it. Whereas in the fantasy dream, you can go wild.
So you're going with a kind of there's a level of plausibility in whichever, whatever the dream is, and it's more challenging to make something implausible fit within that dream.
Exactly.
Cool, that's really
Otherwise,
interesting.
it kind of fights back and tries to, push you out.
So that immediately gives me the idea that you'd have some kind of dice roll that would suggest how successful that would be. But I understand you've got a slightly different mechanic.
Yeah, everything's tarot based on this one, which it's a bit of a frustration because the game has been in circling in my head for about 10 years and has gone through many incarnations. And when it was first being developed, it was dice based and had a great name for it. It was going to be called, the game system was going to be called Rapid Die Movement. And then the more I thought about it, the more I really wanted to incorporate tarot cards as part of the character creation. So instead of you doing a proper Celtic cross spread for reading your future, you're basically creating the background, the unconscious background of the character you were creating. And I thought, oh yeah, this is great. We'll use the cards for that. But then it was going to be cards and dice then. And it just made more sense to use the cards for task resolution as well. And it kind of worked with the way that the attributes and I hate to use the word skills because there's only 5 skills in it. It kind of morphed how that would work as well, thanks to the cards.
Can we maybe explore for anyone who is watching that doesn't really know how tarot decks work with regards to fortune telling, etc., but the basic construction of a tarot deck? So you have like the major arcana and the minor arcana, and how that would play into the system.
Oh, the major arcana are the big ones that everybody recognizes from film and TV.
The Fool and Death and
exactly. Yeah. So they're the major impact ones. They don't have a numerical sort of impact on the actual game system. The minor arcana are basically the same as the 4 suits in a normal playing card deck, except there's an extra card. There's 4 face cards instead of 3, and I've tweaked the suits as well a little bit. So the ace is technically a face card as well. So there's 5 in the wild one, just to be awkward. So the 4 suits are usually like cups, swords, and things like coins and things like that. But they're renamed in wild to suit the 4 attributes. Yeah. And so if you are trying to do any task in particular, you're adding your attribute and your skill together, and you're trying to draw a card that's underneath that. If it's the same suit as the attribute being used, then it's another success. If you draw a court card that's the same as the skill being used, that's another success, and the more successes you get, the better.
So that's why there are 4 attributes which match to the 4 suits, and 5 abilities which match to the 5 face cards, court cards.
And if you draw a major arcana, something weird happens.
We like weird. Weird is good. Weird is very good indeed.
It's kind of an extra randomizer in there to make something extra happen.
No, that's really awesome. And I certainly was trying to think how the tarot deck would actually influence the dream if it's really just being used as a replacement for dice. So explaining that that's with your major arcana cards. Actually, that explains a lot. And of course, the thing with tarot as well is that I think anyone who hasn't had any exposure really to tarot outside of watching people, pull a death card in a film and go, "Oh, someone's going to die," don't really realize that the intention behind those cards, it doesn't matter whether you're a spiritual person or not. I was, and now I'm not, so work that one out. Is that it's open to interpretation. And there's so much art on every card that, to an extent, you can kind of find what you're looking for to some extent in those cards. You're actually looking at some tarot art for the game, aren't you?
Yes,
And you're what, £1,000 away from that really exciting tier?
What are we about
Something
500 away from the art, which will then go in the book and the digital tools that we're planning as well. But we need an extra 500 on top of that to get the tarot deck printed, which would be nice. It would be good to have that.
So let me understand this right, Stu. If we get 10 more people, then at the upper level, the upper sort of physical pledge level, then we get a full tarot deck in art form.
In art form, yep.
I've got an example of one of those here, so let's have a look. That's very cool. And you can see here, there's so much going on here. You can pull so much out of this image without even understanding tarot. But if we get 20 more people at that £50 pledge level, then you actually get a custom tarot deck.
Yep, deck of cards as well. I think that's only... So it will be available to everyone, but we will be giving that away in the Near and Naught pledge level as well for free. They'll just get that. Everyone at lower levels would get we go in, as well as having the deck printed, we'll have a drive-through RPG, POD, print-on-demand version of the deck. So that will be available to other supporters. And you can obviously add it on as well. Yeah, we're excited about that.
And of course, if you're someone who likes or reads the tarot, either for fun or as a profession or whatever, I presume you could even use the deck for that, which is really interesting. One question I had was actually the other way around, and I've mentioned this to you guys off camera, is how much could you imagine the deck that you have influencing the dream that you're experiencing? So, for example, I own 2 different tarot decks. One which was being used for inspiration for a marriage that we haven't gotten around to doing because we just keep moving house. And that was when we were going back nearly 10 years when steampunk was all the fashion. We were looking at steampunk and we were getting inspiration. And there's a few really cool steampunk tarot decks which have some amazing art on them. And the other one, which I actually bought from, and I'm sure that at least one of you guys will recognise the name of this shop, Inanna's Festival in Norwich.
Yep.
Bless them, I haven't been there for a really long time. But bought from Naomi there, which was the Shapeshifter Tarot, which is a kind of druidic inspiration thing. So, have you thought about how that might influence the GM and influence the dream? Would there be any kind of leeway in that, do you think?
I'm sure there's probably a way that you could tweak it to be more custom depending on what deck you use. Yeah, I'm sure if you want to spice things up a bit. I mean, the book's got the generic descriptions for the cards and what elements you can draw out of it. Yeah. But there's the way that the book that we've got on the Kickstarter works as well is that you're doing a specific training mission, and the dreamscapes are quite random anyway. Yeah. So as you're creating, as you go from one location to the next, you're drawing cards that define what the location looks like, and the book kind of guides you through what each card is and what you can draw out of each card. But I'm sure if you wanted to grab a specific deck and do something different with it, that's fine.
I think just the artwork itself is going to inspire you, because if you're looking at the cards, especially if you draw a major arcana and you're looking at that to influence your the changes to the narrative, then I think whatever the artwork is, that will have an influence on your game, no matter what, whether it's rules or not.
Yeah, good question from Sanjuro about whether it's one deck for everyone. So do you have one deck on the table, or is every player expected to have their own tarot deck?
It's designed mostly so that there's one deck for all of them. For every player's using the same one. So especially during character creation, it's kind of designed so that you've got enough cards to have 5 or 6 characters created at the same time.
Right.
But yeah, the problem we were having when Stu was running it for play testing us,
Stu's fault.
He's based at the other end of the country, and we were sort of using cards and
a devolution of the Stu as well.
So, so because I was GMing, there was a lot of holding cards up to the screen so I could see them, and then they would disappear, and I'd have to remember what card it was and what the influences were. So that was it slowed things down. It was a bit of a sort of mental overload trying to do that.
Have you? I've got a couple more questions I'll pick up on in a second. But have you considered a higher pledge level? Because obviously this is going to be hugely successful. VTT assets, so for Fantasy Grounds or Roll20, for example, that you can bring those cards into?
We haven't, but we have just reached the digital tools stretch goal, which will include, basically it will be a mobile app and browser-based app where you can draw cards, you can manage your character, and you'll be able to share what you're doing as well. So other people will be able to see your card draws. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can play over something like Zoom or Google Hangouts, and actually everyone just logs in. So it's effectively the same thing, which is much better, particularly if you absolutely hate the VCT products that are available. I mean, I've had a Fantasy Grounds license now since they did the last Kickstarter, the Unity one, and it's taken me, like 3 years probably to actually start using it, and even then it's only because of the lockdown that I've kind of had to do that. But I'd much rather just physical dice and just do it all on Zoom. It's fine, and then occasionally bring up a map just so that everyone can be lost together. Sandra also. Go on, Stu. Go on.
I was going to say I've looked at Roll20 before, and I'm a software developer. That's what I do every day, and I cannot get to grips with the Roll20. I just have never been able to do anything with it. So. Good luck to anyone who can.
Roll20, I think, is from a user experience way is probably better. Fantasy Grounds, I think, is more. If you're a coder, it's probably more fully featured. In that basically it's just, I don't know, basic markup for the layout and then some scripting in the back end, but it's not for me. I've got it, but I work in IT, but I'm not a developer. So, I haven't got time in my land for that. Sandro pointed out as well, print of demand can be priced for UK. I agree with that. Actually, I tried to print out, what was it? There was a digital stretch. No, this was going back a couple of years. Vampire was on Humble Bundle, and there was a code for getting cards for Vampire the Masquerade through print on demand. They would only fulfill it through a US print house, which became kind of a challenge. But do you know what? But I'll be honest, it's not going to affect me. I'm getting this at the £50 level. So if we get to physical cards, then all I can say is everyone buy the £50 level, because then you can get the cards for free. And then these guys have to deal with the logistics of it. It's much better.
I don't know why Drive-Thru don't have because obviously all of their book printing is handled in the UK and in the US, but I don't know why their cards aren't.
Well, it might have just been then. I mean, this is based on one experience of trying to get printing done. And Drive-Thru for the most part are pretty good. My Cyberpunk, which is here, that's a Drive-Thru RPG, and it's just as bad as the original. So we can't really knock Drive-Thru on quality.
No.
You get out what you put in. But it's probably worth double checking whether or not that's going to be an issue for European backers. Obviously the US, they're fine. Andy had a really interesting question going back to the gameplay itself, which is, does the system support play outside of the dream as well as within it? So is there a method for character generation for your non-dream character?
Oh yeah, your character's basically the same inside and out, so you should be fine playing sort of corporate espionage Inception style, running around with your briefcase style Dream machine. Yeah, that's no problem at all. The only difference is if you take lots of damage in the real world, you're not just going to brush it off like or suddenly wake up.
Right. Can you die in the dream, and will it kill you in real life?
You can die in the dream, and you normally wake up from it, a bit like Inception, but there is a chance.
There's a consequence potentially.
Yeah, you never know. A bit like the wonders of. It's that weird thing where you have the one end of the spectrum. You have Inception, where you die and you wake up from it, or you have the other end of the spectrum, like Elm Street, where you die and you don't.
Yeah. Both very, very cuddly movies. Recommended nighttime viewing for young people. Let's talk a little bit about you guys. I've got an idea of who both of you are for various reasons. But in alphabetical order, let's start with Mr. Chapman.
Hello.
Let's hear a little bit about who you are, Dave, and what you've had which pies you've had your fingers in over the years, and which pies you enjoyed tasting the most.
Many people would say I probably put my fingers in far too many pies.
There's one over your left shoulder, which is an obvious one.
Yes, yeah. I'm probably best known for Doctor Who. I designed the Vortex system for Cubicle 7 and worked on Doctor Who for forever, just about. I'm currently line developer for it for the 2nd edition, which hopefully should be hitting fairly soon, which is it's a slightly faster, streamlined version of what it was before, and I'm much happier with it. It's been going around for about 10, 12 years now, hasn't it?
Yeah.
But besides that, I was a line developer initially for the initial concept design for Star Trek Adventures from Modiphius.
Yep.
And I was line developer for Conspiracy X 2.0 for Eden Studios, and worked on things like Buffy, All Flesh Must Be Eaten, Ghosts of Albion, quite a lot of their lines. But yeah, that's what, and working on Wild.
Yeah, exciting stuff. And Mr. Goff.
So I've been GMing since I was 10, which is a long time now.
It's a whole 10 years.
It's a lot more than 10 years.
Rounding up, rounding down.
Yes,
rounding down to the nearest
down.
whole 10 years.
And last year I started putting together Aegean.
Yep.
And also Aegean Adventures, which are my Greek mythology RPG, which I've been working on for a few years now. Actually, not quite as long as Wild.
Yeah, we should touch on the development in a second, actually.
I'm just knocking a stack of books over.
Well, you should have them behind you, mate, like we've got.
I should actually, yeah. So there's the advert, isn't there, for Aegean right behind me. So I put that together last year and released the Quick Start. And it's been relatively successful for my first published book. I'm on a second print run, which is a bit of a surprise. You can, and the Adventures book was really just to sort of keep momentum going with that. I'm planning next year probably another Kickstarter to get the final book finished, and that is it's Greek mythology, a mix of classical Greek history, and the big thing that I'm working, or how well I need to write up, but have finished playtesting, is city management. So you'll be able to manage your hometown and watch it grow and or get raided by stronger powers next door and things like that. This year in February, I did Zine Quest, and I don't have a handy copy, unfortunately. I did Zine Quest and made the Gaslight Club.
Oh, I really need to get this to the table. I was saying before that we started the stream that I mean I love this. This is so stylish, and so I don't know how well that's going to pick up. A little bit. It's really nice. It's sort of Art Deco. Do you want to do a rundown of what that game's about and the system for it?
So it's the Mutant Year Zero system. So it's all D6 dice pool, and it's a kind of heavily based on Westworld. So you are androids, only you don't really know that you're androids, and you work in a theme park. kind of was it 20s kind of gangster kind of bar, and you realize that things are strange, things are not how they should be, and you sort of slowly gain some awareness of what is going on, and how you deal with that is entirely up to you. But that was a lot of fun to put together, and I play tested that with Dave. Actually,
are amazing.
Thank you.
They really, I mean, you know, considering that it's a zine, I mean, these things are incredible.
Oh, the character! I'm very pleased with the character sheet.
This is the character sheet, guys. It's so awesome. But anyway, we're talking about the wrong game.
Yeah,
apparently.
Actually, so staying with the Gaslight Club just for a second, what I really liked about that is it's such a quick read.
There's hardly any words in it.
Yeah, exactly. And
I don't know what I paid for.
It's I'm getting a bit bored of the big, thick tome RPGs, which have been great. You know, a lot of I've read many, but they just I have less time to sit and read.
Yeah,
big books nowadays.
Something as you get older and you get more responsibilities, you have far less time. And I certainly find that the games I enjoy the most now, and the books that I appreciate the most now, actually, they're generally very heavily illustrated, but there's not necessarily a lot of written content. I think the Free League games are a good example of this, in that a lot of time is spent on layout and visual design. And if you actually just pull the text out, it's going to be probably a third as thick.
Yeah,
and I'm fine with that, because that helps you to build the environment and to understand the setting. If you're kind of fully immersed the way that you are there, and the way you are even with the Gaslight Club, and certainly, I mean, looking at the way that you guys have designed Wild, I think that's going to be, you know, there's going to be an ethereal nature for it. I've got the picture of the interior spread from the Kickstarter, and you know, just even simple things like this kind of vagueness that we have in the Rorschach and the sort of the sentences that are sort of spread across, and the layout is really intriguing. I like that a lot.
Especially when it comes to things like Free League, their stuff has been a bit of a revelation. Because, before that, it was, you used to get these big books and it was loads of rules and stuff like that. And then Tales from the Loop has to be one of my favourite games from the last 10 years. Yeah. And when you really look at it, the rules are like 20 pages.
And to be honest with you, and this is a conversation I've had with Andy and Matt, who are in the comments, is that actually, if you look at those Year Zero engine games, the majority of the rules are pretty much the same across them, with just some little tweaks here and there. You could pull out that rule set and publish it separately, but it's so simple that it's probably not really worth it. But I've been learning Savage Worlds recently, personally. I only run like Symbaroum, and I've just started running Deadlands Noir, which obviously is a similar genre in some regards to the Gaslight, at least in terms of setting. And Savage Worlds is really cool because actually the book itself is pretty much all thematic, and the settings books are really thematic, and they just help you to immerse. But they pulled most of the rules out, so actually you can just apply that rule set to many different environments. Which is great for me because, like you said, Stu, I'm really time poor. And even if I'm not time poor, I'm energy poor these days. I've got to admit it. You know, that's half the problem. You know, working from home and then walking away from, I'm on the dining table right now, walking away from the office to just go over there to start cooking. It's not really that, you know. I miss my commute. I've not listened to an audiobook properly for 9 months. So it's a real challenge. Let's have a look and see what we've got in the questions. I think we've covered all of those. Digital stretch goals. Sandro suggested you could tie the system to a Discord bot.
Yeah.
That could be fun.
I don't have much experience with them. I do use Discord a bit. So that could be an option. Yeah. Like actually having a Discord channel for the game is probably worth doing, just as a hub for people. I'll look into that.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you there. Particularly now, whilst we're trying to live with this weird world situation that we're in, having a central place to organise games online is probably going to work really well. And with, I don't really want to call it a niche game, but uncommon games, That's much more difficult. It's hard enough to just convince your own friends to play something that they've never heard of, let alone from the other way around. What did we have in the notes here? So how did you come up with the concept? How long have you been working on this?
Far too long. Far too long. I'd say probably had I've always been interested in the whole dream elements in RPGs anyway. Back in the late 80s, I was very into writing supplements and adventures for Ghostbusters, and I used to type them all up on a typewriter and photocopy them, send them all off to West End Games in that vain hope that they'd get published one day. Typically, just as Ghostbusters was kind of winding down as a system. I remember doing one that was heavily influenced by Nightmare on Elm Street, but kind of played for laughs, as it should be with Ghostbusters. How you can do that now? God knows what I was thinking. But yeah, I definitely had this memory of coming out from seeing Inception, thinking, "Why isn't there a game of that? That's awesome." And that came out 10 years ago. So
I can't believe it's 10 years old.
I know, it's scary, isn't it?
It's really weird.
So yeah, it's been kind of in development for a long time. Gone through various game systems, and a couple of years ago, I thought, I know, I'm going to pimp it to some publishers and see if I can get anybody interested. And I did this this basically a pitch book. There are 3 of these in existence, hardcovers. This is my last one, which is available as the top tier on the Kickstarter if you want it, which is basically a summary of the entire game and some samples of the second chapter, which is character creation and stuff like that. Gave it to a couple of publishers, and love Ghostbusters. Gave it to a couple of publishers, one of which was quite interested. And then it got to a year later, and I realised nothing had happened with it. And when I went to the Dragon Meet the following year, and nothing's happened with that. And that's when Stu said, let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And the big key turning point has always been, if somebody pays for the artwork for the cover, then I have to get it finished. Otherwise, we wasted some money. And Stu organised all that as well.
So Stu is the primary investor.
I'm the great enabler. That's how I like to think of it.
So, I mean, that actually brings me on to something that I had wanted to ask, which is how you, between the two of you, because obviously you're the people who are putting this together, how you separate your work. I presume you're doing different things within the project. How you do that, and how you keep each other going when, as you said earlier on, Stu is in a rather different area of the UK.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm in Glasgow, which is quite away from Norwich. It's quite a distance. So I have done none of the game design work. That's not my job at all. I'm really acting as a publisher. So after doing Aegean last year, I kind of want to expand that. I want to make more games, but it's not always. Yeah, games are good. Games are great. That's what we're here for. It's not very interesting to me if I make all of the games, if that makes sense. I know exactly what I know, and I know the kind of games that I would make. And up to a point, that's fun. And Aegean is great, and I love it. Yeah. But if I make another game, it's probably going to be similar to Aegean.
Yeah, these are games that you kind of already played in your head to an extent, and you kind of want to get excited about someone else's IP.
Exactly. And if I can make that happen, then I'm all for that. So that is what this is. That's why Wild is going ahead. And really, my job with the project has been. It's to sort of forget about things for a while and let Dave get on with it, and then go, right, we're doing a Kickstarter. Let's do it next month. And that's pretty much how it happens.
Okay then, Dad.
Right in the middle of Doctor Who. Do I have to do it now? Yes, I'm doing it before the end of the year.
Yep.
Okay.
To be honest, I mean, it could be really tempting to just kind of keep putting it off, particularly given the current climate. and I don't mean because it's a bit chilly. It's never going to be a right time, I think.
No.
And I also think that actually games are doing really well. I mean, if you saw Kickstarter over the last couple of months, November and October were really expensive. But do you know what? There's not much on right now, so you're fine. No, I think it's a really interesting time, and the price point that you put on the game is great as well. If it were like more like a zine, I would have said maybe holding off a zine quest might have been more sensible, just in terms of that's, those of us who were active on Kickstarter would kind of expect it then. But I mean, the product itself just looks fantastic in terms of the direction that you're going with it. I'm just looking for, there we go. So, that's not a zine. That is not a zine at all. And all the better for it, I think. I'm really interested to see how it pans out. Let's talk about the stretch goals, because obviously that's, I would presume, what you would call the retail edition.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if, can I bring up the Kickstarter?
From everybody.
Let's have a look and see.
I can never remember the stretch goals. You'd think I would, but I can't. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, I did look to see whether you had a pretty graphic of it, and if I'd had more time, I would have just thrown one together. But I'm sorry, guys, we're just going to have to scroll through them. If I just also, I'm going to switch that over for that. Right, let's have a look, shall we? So this is the Kickstarter. It's running now. It's got 19 days to go. The price to jump on board is ridiculous. £10 for the PDF unless you are not doing too well financially, in which case these wonderful gentlemen will let you have it for £5. And there's not even a limit on that, which I think is incredibly generous of you, to be honest.
Yeah, that's your judgment.
Absolutely.
If you feel that applies to you, then take it.
Yeah, and I think that, especially right now, that's a really, really great initiative, and doing that trust base. I think gamers are a good crowd, really.
Yeah.
20 quid for the print on demand code and a digital copy, which is pretty good. 30 quid gets you a standard edition print copy, which is that the image that I showed earlier on. I'm just going to scroll this here as well. So hang on. I think we've got that here. There we go.
Yeah.
So that's your 30 quid pledge, and you get a digital copy as well. The Neuronaut.
A Neuronaut.
Yeah. The one Ryan out is a deluxe print edition. I'm really interested. There's no concept pictures of this, but this is the one I've gone for because I'm all about the deluxe editions.
So yeah, it's going to be. So we haven't even put the design together for the cover, but it will be the symbols used in. I know the symbols used in the for the cards, for the tarot cards, for the suits in gold leaf on the cover, on a sort of faux black leather. Cover.
I don't want faux, but I also don't want to spend £300. So yeah fine. Yeah, I think it's a good price. Will they be available after the Kickstarter, the deluxe edition?
That's
Maybe
a good question.
Got some stock left over, I guess.
It will be overstock. I'm not planning on printing up to. I'm printing for the Kickstarter backers and probably a handful more. So possibly not.
Got to cover just in cases and things like that, haven't you?
Yeah.
Really? And I think that's fair. Hopefully, we'll get some conventions next year, and you can sell off if you've got anything left from your. I presume you have a web store or something like that at some point.
Yeah.
Retailer edition. One wonderful shop has jumped onto that. Come on, shops, buy more. And then the really exciting ones, the Dream Master and the Collector, which are incredibly limited.
Yeah. So that is that book there.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, hang on, I've just lost my screen. Bear with me. I'm running a Mac, and you make one mistake and suddenly it goes full screen, and then you can't find anything. There we go. Right, I'm back. Yeah, there's just the one of those left, which is, it's very cool.
It's 1 out of 3 as well. So
and have you two got the other two?
I haven't got one.
No.
Shocking.
Yeah.
No, it's just me. Sorry.
But I think that's pretty cool. Stretch goals. We discussed this slightly already. We should probably also just discuss actually what or who Alice is. I know what it is because I've read this.
That's the accelerated lucidity induction system. That's the technology that allows dreamshare. And also because the headband looks like a bit like an Alice band.
A little bit of insight into Dave's mind there. Any excuse to wear an Alice band and he's all over it.
Alice in Wonderland sort of thing. It's getting all very dreamy
it
again.
all fits in pretty well. So you've already gotten up to. You must be basically here now.
We've been bouncing around that stretch goal since the weekend.
That's just painful, isn't it? Just doing a reload.
Just in case.
Come on. No, it's still there.
No.
Come on, guys. Back this. Let's at least get it to 3,500 because at 3,500 we get an adventure.
So that's one that I ran as a playtest for Dave and our regular Monday group. So it's a bit of corporate espionage in there, and stuff and other things, and I won't ruin it.
No, just in case we have players as opposed to GMs watching. I think that's pretty good. Custom artwork, as we discussed, tarot deck, and a 4,500. The tarot deck gets printed instead of just being print on demand. Printed as opposed to just being print it yourself.
Yeah.
Or being in the book. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really cool. Actually, also we didn't really touch on the actual world very much, and I've just been reminded of that going through this. So, Dave, do you want to discuss Carter Henderson?
I had to come up with a bit of a backstory because there was this thing when you're watching Inception or something. I was why does that thing exist? Why does the passive device exist in Inception? And it's okay. So they did this. In fact, I've got one here. Oh, look at that. So they created this. Which I've kind of ripped off as the user manual was one of the stretch goals. This was a promotional thing that they did for Inception, which is a guide to what the device is and how to use it. But of course, most of it's redacted, so you don't know kind of basically what it was. So, because there is no backstory in Inception, I thought, I'd come up with the own one. So, strangely, about 4 or 5 years ago, for NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month, I wrote the first novel of a trilogy, which is the backstory to the game.
Okay.
It's not readable. Let's put it that way.
Oh, did you do it in another language?
Oh no, it's just that 90,000 words in a month, and you look back at it and go, actually,
the target is only 50,000. You didn't need to write that many.
It's like
he actually just copied most of the first half again. So
I finished the story.
I'm a fish for several thousand.
So the basics of the story is that Carter Henderson's some typical tech mogul who's a bit shallow and has ignored his family completely. His wife's divorced him, and he kind of ignores his daughter. And his daughter is at her school leaving due when something happens, and she slips into a coma with irregularly high brain activity.
Is that high compared to normal people or compared to herself? I mean,
normal comas.
Because from the baseline, then that's it's fairly easy, to be honest with you.
Normal comas don't have a higher brain function. So
exactly.
Yeah. This is just typically a big tech launch when he's announcing this brain computer interface thing, which is designed to allow hands-free using computers. So he adapts the technology to become a dreamshare device so that he can try and go into the comatose mind of his daughter and rescue her to sort of bring her back to a wakeful state. In not spoiling it really, but in the game setting, he fails. She doesn't really need rescuing anyway, but she does come back out of it when her estranged mother returns and joins them in the dreamscape eventually, which is for book 3 if I ever get around to writing the fiction. But yes, so this initial dive to try and rescue her is the main concept of this version of the RPG, which is the training dive is a replay of that. So you're basically going into ClarIT's is her name, the daughter, as well as the name of the company, and you're going into ClarIT's subconscious to try and draw her back into a wakeful state.
Cool. I mean, that definitely does remind me of Reverie, which we were talking about earlier on, which again is awesome and everyone needs to watch.
Oh yeah,
it's so fun. So yeah,
I've just been informed that we've passed the 3,500 mark.
Oh sweet!
Woohoo! Yep.
Way.
Now you've got to write that thing.
Yeah,
I've got to write that adventure now. Yeah.
If that was one of the guys that's watching, then thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And yeah, please do have a good look at the campaign. We've got, was it 19 days left?
Yeah, we've still got quite a bit of time. Yeah.
Absolutely. We'll probably see a surge towards the end when everyone realizes exactly how cool this is.
Awesome.
No, I think we've covered off quite a lot. Yeah, I think that's probably a good place to stop.
On the good news, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've hit £3,506.
It's weird, an odd pound, isn't there? Somebody backed it at a pound.
It's even weirder than that because someone gave us 22p. They pledged £20 and 22p. I don't know if that's like a dollar conversion or something, but
it could be. That's weird.
Yeah,
that is strange. So someone else then paid the difference to
no, it doesn't do pennies on the
Kickstarter. Shame on you.
Yeah.
So Dave, Stu, thank you so much for your time.
Thank
you.
you.
Appreciate it. It's been great fun. If you've enjoyed watching this, then please do, hit the like and the subscribe and the follow and the bell and the, I don't know, the "We Like You" fans button and give us chocolate buttons and all that sort of stuff down there. Then we'll continue to try and bring exciting content about cool stuff. I've really enjoyed this. I think this game looks really, really fun. And I'm really looking forward to it. When do we expect to have it landing on people's doorsteps?
We've said April. April. The bulk of the writing is already done, isn't it? Apart from you've got to do another 20 pages because we passed that stretch goal. So you've got to fit some more GM stuff in there.
Excellent.
So most of the writing is done. The printers we've used they're so quick. It blows me away. The quality and the speed of their printing is amazing. So that's Inky Little Fingers who did.
Yeah, there's a lot that did this.
They did that. They did both of the Aegean books. They did the Gaslight Club. So they did both of these. They did the Gaslight Club as well.
Yeah.
They're very good. They have a 5-day turnaround. So as long as
that's really cool.
Yeah, as long as all the writing is done, we aim to get everything around April. Obviously they'll.
Yeah, that gives you a little bit of float for UK Games Expo, which obviously is going to happen next year, fingers crossed. Excuse me. And, of course, there are other conventions that are going on as well. Realistically, even if we get it at the end of May, we've still got time for that, which would be really good. I'd just like to very quickly thank everyone who has joined us this evening. So, Sanjuro, Andy, Matt, and Millie who've all commented. I'm sure there are more that have watched. Thank you so much for joining us. Dave, Stu, it has been a real pleasure, and I'm sure we'll catch up more as the campaign progresses.
Yep.
Thank you.
Excellent.
And,
Thanks
thank you everyone for joining. Have a good one. And may your dice rolls be much better than mine.
And your card draws.
And your card draws, yeah. May your card draws be better than... Card draws? Who keeps a card? I haven't got a card draw. Don't be absurd. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.